In 2020, Apple quietly began moving some of its supply chain out of China and into Vietnam. And in 2021, Samsung invested over $3 billion in new manufacturing zones in Vietnam. By 2022, Tesla suppliers started pouring billions into Indonesia, chasing its nickel riches. And in 2023, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft were all expanding operations in the Philippines without saying much. No one made a big deal out of it, but the signs were everywhere. A quiet shift was happening. These weren't just headlines, they were warnings. Warnings that something new was rising in Southeast Asia. 3 countries, once overlooked, now unavoidable. Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines. They're not emerging anymore, they've emerged. And in 2025, it's undeniable that these 3 will be new Asian giants in the near future. Please take a moment to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Call it the China +1 strategy, or even China +2. Big companies no longer want to keep all their supply chains in one country, especially not in a world of trade wars, tariffs, and geopolitical risk. So where are they going? Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines. Apple is shifting production. Samsung is already there. Nike, Foxconn, and dozens more are expanding quietly but rapidly. Factories are moving, investments are shifting, and these 3 countries are winning, big. Vietnam is the definition of stealth success. It's now Southeast Asia's fastest growing economy, and most people have no idea. Samsung makes more than half of its phones here. Intel, LG, Apple suppliers, they're all in deep. Vietnam has one of the best trade deal networks in Asia, RCEP, CPTPP, EU-Vietnam FTA, giving it access to major global markets with minimal friction. Add to that a young, educated workforce, stable government, and big infrastructure investments. It's not a fluke, it's a formula. Vietnam isn't trying to be anyone else. It's carving out its own path, leaner, faster, and just as connected. 270 million people. That's more than Russia, more than Brazil, more than any EU country. Indonesia isn't just big, it's strategic. It's rich in natural resources, nickel, copper, coal, palm oil, and more. And with the global shift to EVs, Indonesia's massive nickel reserves are now critical. The country is actively positioning itself as a battery and EV production hub, attracting investments from Tesla-linked companies and major Chinese players. And then there's Nusantara, the new smart capital city being built from scratch to replace overcrowded Jakarta. This isn't just symbolism, it's strategy. Indonesia is preparing for the future, and it's doing it on its own terms. The IMF already predicts Indonesia will be a top 5 economy by the 2040s. The clock's ticking, and it's on their side. The Philippines has always been underestimated, but it's quietly building an economic model that works. Its BPO industry, business process outsourcing, is now second only to India, and in some areas, it's overtaking it. Call centers, digital services, back-end support, all running 24/7 with a young English-speaking workforce. Add to that remittances from over 10 million overseas Filipino workers, which pump billions into the domestic economy each year, and you have a nation with silent financial strength. Meanwhile, major cities like Manila, Cebu, and Davao are evolving into industrial, tech, and logistics zones. The government's aggressive build infrastructure campaign is transforming roads, airports, and seaports. Here's the real kicker. Unlike Japan, China, or much of the West, these 3 countries aren't getting older, they're getting younger. Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines have growing, youthful populations. That means more workers, more consumers, and more growth. Their urban middle classes are expanding fast. Domestic demand is booming. And unlike aging societies, they're not worried about shrinking populations anytime soon. These are countries building their futures from the ground up, with energy and numbers on their side. This isn't just about factories and exports, it's about power. Indonesia is already playing a bigger role in regional diplomacy, anchoring ASEAN and balancing between major global players. Vietnam is becoming a strategic bridge between East and West, assertive, independent, and increasingly respected. The Philippines is walking a fine line geopolitically, but attracting investment and attention from every direction. These aren't passive players, they're active shapers of the new Asian century. And as global power continues shifting east and south, these three are sitting in the perfect spot. The global economy is shifting, and it's no longer about the same old names. While legacy powers stall and overthink, Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Philippines are moving fast, building big, and thinking long-term. They're not waiting for permission, they're not begging for attention, they're just quietly getting stronger, and the world is starting to notice. Vietnam is becoming a manufacturing and tech magnet with world-class trade deals and infrastructure. Indonesia is building a new capital, controlling critical minerals, and transforming into a regional superpower. The Philippines is riding a digital wave, exporting talent and modernizing its entire economy from the inside out. These aren't support acts, they're becoming main characters in the story of the 21st century. They've got youth, they've got momentum, they've got a vision. And whether the rest of the world is ready or not, Southeast Asia's new giants are here. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel.